What's up, desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back with another video, and this is the first episode of Bodybuilding History Bites with John Hansen. And today we're going over the 2001 Mr Olympia. Now, this is the one where Jay Cutler won the prejudging and ended up losing to Ronnie Coleman, which is Ronnie Coleman's fourth title. John was actually there, and he goes over who he thought should have actually won the contest and how Ronnie Coleman came back to win the 2001 Mr Olympia, plus so much more. I hope you guys really enjoy this, and let me know what you think in the comments. And if you like these videos, please give it a thumbs up and smash that like button. Also subscribe and hit that notification bell button. That way you will not miss out on any more of these bodybuilding history bites, which go up every Thursday, excluding the first episode, of course, which is this one. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoy the video. Welcome back to Desktop Bodybuilding. Today I'm joined by John Hansen once again for our Bodybuilding History show. John, we're talking about the 2001 Mr Olympia. You were there in person, and this was a controversial one because Jay Cutler missed out on beating Ronnie Coleman. Apparently he's beating Ronnie after the prejudging. Let's get into it and talk about what went down at the 2001 Mr Olympia. So how did it all go down, and what did you think of it being there in person?
Well, it was a really good Olympia. This was the year, of course, of 9/11. So this contest took place only a few weeks after 9/11. So a lot of people were wondering how the contest was going to turn out, if it was going to get a good crowd. I remember flying out there to Vegas to see that show. And, of course, the airport security was really high. So it was interesting, though, because this was Ronnie's fourth Mr Olympia win. So his first win in 98 was really decisive. I mean, he was a total shock. Nobody expected him to win. They thought he might be in the top 5. But when he won in 98, he just blew everybody away. Yeah. And came back in 99. That was the first year they held it in Vegas. And, again, I thought he won pretty convincingly. Flex Wheeler looked really good because Flex Wheeler got a lot bigger that year. But I thought Ronnie still had him from the back with the glutes. He had those strided glutes, and his back was so incredible. Now, in 2000, Ronnie started to get a little bit bigger, and you could see his stomach was sticking out a little bit. And I think the judges kind of warned him, Ronnie, you're starting to get a little bit too big, because his weight was going up every year. I think he was 247 when he won it in 98. He was 257 when he won it in 99. And then I think he was in the 260s when he won it in 2000. Yeah. So in 2001, Ronnie did something that was really unusual. The Mr Olympia winner went into the Arnold Classic. Usually it never had happened like that. I don't think anybody had ever done that before. Usually the guys would win the Arnold Classic first, and then once they won the Olympia, they were established as Mr Olympia. Like Dorian Yates never went to the Arnold Classic, and Lee Haney never went to the Arnold Classic. So Ronnie goes into the Arnold Classic. He said for the 2001 Olympia, he was bloated. I think from the stories I heard that I don't know if he was dieting too hard or whatever, but he almost like collapsed. I think he was like shaving or something in the bathroom at the hotel, and he actually collapsed and fell into the tub. I just heard this in an interview. So he was really feeling depleted. I don't know if it was they were going too low on the carbs or whatever, but Chad Nichols, his coach, told him to drink all this water. So I think he drank like a gallon of water. So when he shows up for the prejudging the next day, he felt better, but his stomach was sticking out a lot. Now, what no one expected was Jay Cutler to come in totally ripped. I think Jay took like 8th the year before. And Jay was a good bodybuilder. I think he had already won the Night of the Champions. So he was a good bodybuilder, but he was like kind of like a second tier. They didn't expect him to be up there. Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, Nasser, those guys were still at the top, right under. And, of course, Flex Wheeler. They were right underneath Ronnie. But Jay comes in that year, and he's shredded. And he's ripped, and he's got that size, and he's got those wide shoulders. He's got those incredible legs, and people were shocked at how good he looked. So at the prejudging, I don't think they ever did this before. They rarely do it. After they got done with all the comparisons, they called out Ronnie and Jay for the last comparison. So the crowd goes crazy because now everybody knows Jay's fighting Ronnie for the title. Yeah. So they do all the mandatories. It's pretty close. Ronnie's still looking huge. He's got those huge arms, huge chest. Of course, from the back, Ronnie looks amazing. But then they turn around. The last pose they called for is the ab and thigh pose. And Cutler destroyed him on that. He sticks his leg out. He strided quads. And then he crunched down those abs. Jay's got those amazing abs. This such deep abs. So he absolutely destroyed Ronnie on that pose, and the crowd was going crazy. So it ended up being that Jay beat Ronnie at the prejudging. So Jay was going to be Mr. Olympia. Now I remember at the night show, I went to the night show, and I can't remember who posed first, whether it was Jay or Ronnie, but I think it was Ronnie first. So Ronnie comes out, and this is, like I said, a couple weeks after 2011. He poses, he starts doing some posing, standard posing, and then he rips his posing trunks off, and he's got a smaller pair of posing trunks on that are red, white, and blue, like the flag, you know. So the crowd goes crazy, and he's doing it like this, you know, that he always does. And he really got the crowd on his side. Plus, Ronnie looked way better at night, much harder than the prejudging. That water bloat that he had at the prejudging was gone. So Jay, to my surprise, I couldn't believe it, he comes out and he does this really slow routine. I'm like, what the hell? You know, he had him on the ropes. He had him beat at the prejudging, and he didn't, like, go for it at the end. He really should have came out to some really good music, really good routine, and really claimed that title, but he didn't. And then they did the pose down between them, and Ronnie ends up edging Jay for the title. So a lot of people
did they actually judge the routines back then?
It's a good question. I think they did. I think they were judging all three rounds. I think they were judging prejudging, and then the routines, and then the pose down. So there were 3 scores.
Yeah, so I've never heard that story about Jay Cutler and his routine. I knew the Ronnie Coleman one, how he ripped his trunks off and he had the USA trunks. I was like, that's a smart move. But I never heard the Jay Cutler one about how he had this slow routine, because Jay typically, you know, later in his career posed to that more, you know, he'd pump the crowd up a bit, he'd do a bit of slow music, and then he'd normally pump the crowd up a bit. But yeah, that's interesting, because Jay doesn't have, I mean, I suppose he had a bit more of a, aesthetic physique back in the day, but it still was still quite a powerful physique that you think maybe suit a bit more, you know, harder, heavier, more aggressive posing.
Right. Especially when you got Ronnie on the ropes, you got to act like you want it. You know, I come from, I used to see the 70 contest, the contest in the 1977, 78, 79, and I remember the guys back then would have some unbelievable great posing routines. So I'm a big fan of bodybuilding posing. I think that's the art of bodybuilding, and that's really what you need to do to really show your physique, is you have to have a great routine. And I think a lot of guys, especially in this era, they don't spend enough time on their posing. They have these powerful physiques, but they're not displaying it to the audience. You know, I mean, you could do so much with the right poses, the right music. And when you do a good posing routine, those posing routines are remembered forever. I mean, we're still watching videos of guys from the 70s and 80s from their posing routines, or the 90s even. And we'll never forget those routines because they're so great. I mean, guys like Lee Labrada, Muhammad McAway, Sean Ray, Ed Corney, of course. I saw him in the 70s. These guys were amazing posers, and you can really change things. You know, you can really get the crowd on your side. You can get the judges on your side. So, yeah, Jay really lost an opportunity. I actually heard, I can't remember who told me the story, but they said they were sitting next to Jim Mannion. And Jim Mannion, after he saw Jay's routine, he goes, wow, I guess Jay doesn't want to win this thing.
Wow, really? So, that's interesting.
Yeah, he really lost the opportunity. I think he could have won that show for sure. And he could have beat the reigning Mr. Olympia, which would have been amazing, because I don't think that had happened since Lee Haney beat Samir Bannout in 1984.
Yeah. How do you think, if Jay won the Olympia in 2001, how do you think that would have changed bodybuilding history going forward? Like in 2002, Jay sat out, but obviously if he had won it, he would have competed again and whatnot. How do you think that Jay would have gone on to win in 2002, or do you think Ronnie, like how he did actually lose to Gunter Schlurkamp in that GNC show of strength, do you think that Ronnie would have, if he lost in 2001, he just would have been like, nah, just gone all out for 2002 probably? Oh
yeah, I think for sure Ronnie would have came back, and he would have came back unbelievable, you know.
I agree.
Ronnie was a real competitor, and I definitely want his title back, but it really would have been exciting if he would have had that pose down, you know. If Jay would have beat Ronnie in 2001, I could imagine 2002 would have been an amazing Mr. Olympia.
Yeah. Now that video we see all the time of Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman from the 2001 Olympia, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where it's the call out of just them two. Is that from the prejudging or the finals, do you remember?
That was the prejudging. That was the last call out.
Yeah. And that's when I thought, like, when you watch that video, I'm like, I like Jay Cutler in that one. But at the finals, who would you have had winning? Like, if it was you judging and you decided who won the Mr. Olympia, just at the finals, would you have had Ronnie Coleman or Jay Cutler?
I would have had Ronnie. Yeah, I agreed with what the judges did. You know, I think Ronnie pulled it out at the end, and it is a it is a two-part show. It's prejudging and night show. It's not just one or the other. So that happened in 1979 when Mike Mentzer lost to Frank Zane. Mike Mentzer. Well, back then they used to have the under 200-pound class and the over 200-pound class.
Yep.
But Mentzer scored a higher score in the over 200-pound class than Zane did. So Mentzer was really leading going into the finals. And then when they had the pose down, they put them together. Mentzer was posing too fast. He was letting his stomach hang out. And Zane was posing perfectly because he was a champion and he'd already won it twice. He knew exactly what he was doing. So then Zane pulled ahead of him at the end, and I think it was the right decision. So, yeah, you have to judge what's up there, and you can't just go by the prejudging. I think there's more to it than that. I think the posing routines should be judged, and you do have to take into account who wants it more and who looks good at night,
Yep. Now, in 2001, was that the year they did the diuretic testing? Because I remember it was around there, 2000, 2001. I think it was 2001 where Jay Cutler was involved in the diuretic testing. He tested and got tested positive, and then he got off or whatever. But I think the reason why he set up the 2002 Olympia, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was something to do with that whole issue with the testing. Now, was that the year?
I believe that was the year. I think you're right. So they did the diuretic testing because they were afraid of guys dying from taking diuretics, because diuretics, they can kill you right away. I mean,
Absolutely.
Unlike steroids, which, the steroid effects, that takes years to develop, so if you're going to get bad kidneys or even heart disease from taking too many steroids, that usually takes years to develop. Diuretics is messing with your electrolyte balance, which could stop your heart, so you can die immediately. And they were afraid of that, so they did do the testing. But I believe what happened was Jay got some attorneys, and they said in the rule book that the testing had to be done by a WADA-approved laboratory, World Anti-Drug Association. So the one they did was in Vegas, and the WADA laboratory was somewhere else. So they didn't use the WADA-approved laboratory. So by that, they dropped the suspension, and they kept his second place because they realized they would have lost in court because they didn't follow the rules. So Jay was smart to do that.
And did you get more stories about
that? Out 2002. I know Jay did the 2002 Arnold, and he won that, and he looked fantastic. And I remember people were thinking, how's he going to look, because can he repeat that Olympia condition again for the Arnold? And he did. He looked amazing. I was at that show, and he looked really good. But then he really lost an opportunity, because at the 2002 Olympia, that's the one where Ronnie was off, if you remember.
And Kevin got second, was it?
Flat. Huh?
Was Kevin second in that one?
Yes, Kevin was second in that one, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So he really missed out. He missed out in 2001 by not taking advantage of, at the finals, wanted to come in and actually win it. He lost an opportunity in 2002. So we could be saying that Jay Cutler is I believe he won 4 in his career Mr. Olympias in the end. He could be a 6-time Mr. Olympia based on that. So that sort of changes bodybuilding history in a massive way, because we see Dorian Yates. It's almost like we see these group of guys like Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lee Haney. We see these guys as the top tier, and then we see guys like Jay Cutler, sort of, those guys as the next sort of tier, which, if Jay had won those 2 Olympias, he'd be right up there with all those top guys in terms of Olympia wins. So I think we maybe see things a little bit different just because of that. But Jay Cutler obviously has to go down as one of the all-time greats in bodybuilding. And that's awesome that you were there and we actually got that opinion from you, and it's really cool because a lot of people that were there, don't really go on podcasts much anymore, or they're, the judges and stuff like that. So it's cool to get that opinion from you, because a lot of people say, Jay was robbed in 2001, but they don't take into consideration, the finals and what actually happened. They watch that one video where they see Ronnie Coleman versus Jay Cutler for prejudging, but they're not actually thinking about what went down at the finals, that Ronnie improved and all that sort of stuff. Because a lot of people actually assume that this was just corruption, and that Ronnie Coleman, they realised he was behind me, no, he better win. So I'm glad you're actually able to sort of dispel some of those myths, and perhaps Ronnie did deserve to win in the end. So combining the 2 shows, would you have had it pretty much like a 50-50, either guy could have won?
Yeah, I think either guy could have won. Jay brought it at the prejudging, and Ronnie was off. And then Ronnie brought it at night, and Jay didn't, like I said, Jay had him on the ropes. He should have knocked him out, He should have came out with this killer routine, really emphasized his abs and his thighs. And, he was already leading. So I think there's a really good chance he could have beat Ronnie at that show, because he was already leading. Ronnie would have had to come up and pass him up, which is what he did.
Wow, that's crazy. That's awesome. So thank you so much, John, for coming on once again. Now plug your seminar that you have coming up quickly, and also your online coaching transformation deal you got going on.
Yeah, we got the John Hansen Fitness Challenge coming up. It starts on January 20th. So go to johnhansenfitness.com and you can get your entry form in. You're going to get 12 weeks of coaching from me for only the price of 4 weeks. So you get 2 free months of coaching, and you get a chance to win some prizes. We got supplements from Old School Labs. You win all of my DVDs and all of my books. So it's some really great prizes, and you get a chance to get in great shape. And then I've got the John Hansen Bodybuilding Seminar coming up on March 21st and 22nd out in Tampa, Florida. And you can also sign up for that on johnhansenfitness.com. It's going to be a 2-day seminar featuring both classroom training and in the gym hands-on training. So it's going to be really, really intensive. I've got over 40 years of experience in bodybuilding, so people will really get all that knowledge that I've done. I probably competed in over 50 shows. I won the Natural Olympia, the Natural Universe. So I know how to get big, how to get ripped, how to keep your muscle, all those different aspects. And we're going to be talking about all of that in the seminar.
Yeah, that's awesome. And all the links for all that sort of stuff will be in the description of this video as well. So if you guys are interested, make sure you actually click on those links and find out all about it, because it's some really good value. In terms of the coaching as well, it's just insane. Like, the value you're giving out is just awesome. And obviously, like you said, 40 years of experience winning natural Mr. Olympias and universes and stuff. It's like, I actually think a lot of the natural guys that have done it naturally and have been successful, a lot of the time they're much more clued in, and especially to guys that are natural, are much better at coaching, but also to guys that are enhanced as well, because you know what to do with the body without the addition of all these other compounds and stuff as well. So you know what actually works, and it's not just this drug or that drug. So very good value there. So also, guys, if you guys enjoy this content, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Also subscribe and hit that notification bell button, and also let us know what you think of the 2001 Olympia as well. Who do you think should have won out of Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman? But anyway, that's it for another video. For Xavier Wills, John Hansen, we are out.